Good evening, everyone. Welcome to LFC Transfer Room. I'm here tonight, joined by Carter, Dan, and Paul, to discuss the latest developments around Liverpool Football Club. Now, as you know, the biggest development around Liverpool is that yesterday was Jurgen Klopp's final match as a Liverpool manager. It was a pretty emotional day at Anfield. We almost forgot there was a title race going on, as pretty much the whole world did, but that's just how big of a club we are, and just how big of a manager Jurgen was for us as well. Probably the biggest we've had, at least in the last 20 years, I'd say. Debatable, then I don't know. You're the one who usually likes to. uh, if not, we're gonna go ahead and ask everyone how they're doing. Carter, how about you, mate?
Yeah, I'm good. I enjoyed the last game. I went out to a pub garden after, which was nice. So I'm just in the mood for summer now, just starting to relax and bits and pieces. Enjoy it, just enjoying it, and getting ready for the rumors about the 800 different players we're going to be linked to and apparently sign. So yeah, it's looking like a good summer.
It is going to be a pretty long summer indeed. But yeah, we're gonna have a lot to talk about indeed. And yes, John. As far as we know, Arne Slot will be a head coach and not the manager, and then therefore it's gonna be on Hughes and maybe Edwards if he'd like to also give some advice to our new sporting director. Paul, how are you doing tonight, mate?
Surprisingly, I'm very good. When we heard the news that Klopp was leaving, I was dreading this day, the day after. But I have to say that I am more excited than fearful. I'm actually looking forward to the future. And unlike most people, I don't expect us to have a drop off. I think Slot is coming to a very good situation. I think we have a very good back office staff. Edwards and company know that their reputation is on the line. So I think we're going to have a good transfer window. And I think we're going to be right there next week, next year, next season. So I am excited. So let's see.
Excited we are indeed, and it's been getting better ever since the announcement. I remember the stream on that Friday. I was the one fortunate enough to host that evening. So yeah, it was all the topics basically flew out the window, and we ended up talking about Jurgen for an entire hour. And I'm guessing it's going to be close to what we're going to do today. We're going to try not to, promise though. Dan, how are you tonight? How's the Boston weather?
Oh, the weather's actually really amazing. If you can't tell, I got a bunch of sun. We had graduation last Friday, and I was in the sun for 3 hours for the first time in like 8 months, and so I got sunburned because I haven't seen the sun in so long. It's been good, I mean, I have to say that I enjoyed the last day in a very uh, solipsistic way, in the sense of like a lot of inner reflection, think about everything. It was kind of disappointing not to be in the title race at the end. City won on 91. I thought we'd get 92 points, and if we had gotten 92 points, we would have won the league. That would have been a nice way to send Klopp out. I do think the fact we did finish with 82 is a good sign, like Paul said, for going forward with Slot, because Slot can look at this and say, you guys got 82 points this year. We can do more and better next year. And if we can get more than 82 points, that's, you're always going to be within shout of winning a title. I mean, I'm good. I am very excited actually for Arne Slot. I like the fact it's been confirmed. It was confirmed by Slot, then by Jurgen, and then finally by the club. The club really wanted to wait and get all the media out on Jurgen leaving before they announced him. But I'm really excited. Like, I like Slot. I like how he plays. I like how he plays at Feyenoord. It's very Klopp-esque in his own way, even though it comes from the Klopp, coaching carousel. At Feyenoord, plays very similar systems, maybe a little bit different in terms of approach, shape, and players he focuses on. But it's really exciting. I mean, I actually think that we're in a situation where we're going to have a new guy. It's going to feel different, but I think it's not going to be that big of a drop off, like Paul said. Like, I don't think we're going to go from 82 points to 68. I think it's more likely we go from 82 to 88 than it is from 82 to like 74 or something like that, if that makes sense. So I think we're gonna have a good time. It's gonna be very enjoyable. It's gonna be a lot different. Like Carter said, 800 players that we're gonna try and sign, and all of them are great. Maybe one of them's a 6. Who knows? If all 800 or not, if and we're probably end up signing 780 of them are probably gonna be left wingers. Can't never have enough right-footed left wingers.
We talked about that position a lot last summer as well. I remember. So hope it seems like that's going to be the topic as well. Very specific there with the numbers. Then thank you as always. So hopefully not 74 points. Then we're going to try and keep that in mind. And yes. I don't know if anyone's noticed in the thumbnail, but I've put that as the title. I've put "Life is Life," which is basically the song the chant that Jurgen started yesterday. La 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 la. No, I'm trying. Okay, but yeah, it's going to be a popular chant now. It's been and what a moment it's been yesterday as well with Jurgen announcing it like that. I think when I heard that when I watched it on when I watched it live, I was thinking just what a man Jurgen is. Basically announcing the next head coach in that manner, and I think it's also been interesting to note what we've been discussing as well. We've had the other Dan on stream say that he's a bit disappointed with Slot's with Slot being the new head coach, and then with us getting a coach that's maybe not good enough for Liverpool. But then what Jurgen said yesterday, I think it was the best possible message. You just have to back the next coach, manager, whatever he might be. Just back him like we backed Jurgen, and then just hope that he's going to take us where Jurgen took us. And it's basically as simple as that. Until proven wrong, we have to be there for the new manager to support him and the players, of course, and his staff. And I happen to agree with Dan with what you said, guys. I think that indeed, I was a bit skeptical at first. When we missed out on Xabi Alonso, when we heard that he's not going to switch jobs, basically. Me personally, I was a bit skeptical, but then I think, as Jurgen said, the foundations are there. So we have what it takes, and it's all set for Liverpool to keep being a successful club. So yeah, it was pretty emotional yesterday, Carter, wasn't it? I as I said, before going live, I wasn't even paying too much attention to the game. Honestly, I was just looking at the timer, and I was just thinking, okay, 20 more minutes, 10 more minutes, 5 more minutes, and then it's somehow I got through that without crying, which I'm pretty proud of myself of. But yeah, how was it? How was it for you, Carter?
It was very interesting for me. I got back from university that morning, so I was sat there watching. I actually watched it. I watched it on my own because my dad and brother had managed to get tickets, and they were up in the nosebleeds, right underneath the roof. So it was a bit I was a bit jealous, but it was a nice experience. And I think for everyone, I think, as I kind of said to you before, and what you said to me before, you weren't too focused on the game. It was almost I'm not American, but it was almost like a pep rally. It was everyone getting their little send off. It was everything. It didn't really feel like a game. It was quite a unique experience. And obviously, I think I'm the youngest here. I've had Benitez, Hodgson, Rodgers, Dalglish, and Klopp as my managers, and I was quite young when Sir Alex left, so I don't really remember watching that. So for me, it was very interesting to see someone who's been at a club and gone out in a very positive way, because obviously Wenger it ended horribly for him. It was all Wenger out and planes flying over the stadium. But I just think, it was a lovely send off for a great coach, and for Matip and Thiago as well, and all the coaching staff.
Yeah, and interesting you mentioned Wenger. One thing that I remember is seeing, of course, there's the positive side of things on social media. It was basically our fans saying, that he's been such an inspiration for us, and he's probably been the best manager we've had in the last 20-30 years. And then funnily enough, we keep seeing people saying that Jurgen only has the Champions League and the Premier League. Funnily enough, there's only two other managers who've done that. It's Sir Alex and Pep Guardiola. So, maybe not as easy as people think getting one of those each. Funny you should say that, Jay Muse. I was actually thinking, Carter, you said you're a West London boy, weren't you?
Yeah,
So
West.
then
Yeah, West London. Yeah,
Fulham it is then, in your
More Brentford, more Brentford or QPR than
more
Fulham, to be
Brentford.
honest.
Fair enough. Fair enough. From what I've seen today, Thomas Frank might also leave for Bayern Munich. So there's a position available right there. Okay, Paul. How was yesterday for you? How did you? What time was it for you when you watched it? I think it might have been a bit different in that regard, at least. How was it?
It started at 9 a.m. my time, so it's a little bit odd. Our games are usually like 7:30 or 11 thereabouts. It was one of the most uneventful last day in recent memory. Most last days, you have 4 or 5, 6 interesting games going on at the same time. So you're keeping an eye on this team, that team. A couple of years when we lost the Premier League by 1 point each. You're watching your game, but you're also watching my game on the computer, watching the other game on the TV, that kind of stuff, just to see what's happening. Yesterday it was so different. The only game I was watching was our game, especially after City had scored in the first 5 minutes. So the title was done. The team that are relegated, they're all gone. We were settled in the number 3 position. We're gonna move up nor down. And then the first 5-10 minutes of the game with Wolves, the way they were playing, kind of backing off, kind of that low block situation, they're not pressing us. It's like they're saying, okay, guys, let's leave out here with a 0-0. We are fine. You are fine. There's no pressure. So there was really no stress on the game. Towards the end of the game, it's like we are just waiting, just blow off this game. The result doesn't matter. So it was one of those low stress day for me yesterday. The the hour and a half presentation after the game, I managed it quite well. I thought I would have I would be emotional. I thought I would be a wreck. I thought I would have some tears, but actually, it was more a celebration rather than rather than that. And I was good. I did a lot of research on Arne Slot, what we can find, and from what we have seen over the last couple of weeks, I think most of us are comfortable that we have the as close as we could get for a replacement. So one of those days where I guess if we're not going to win the title, then that's kind of the best game to have as the last game without the pressure. Because if it's a case where it's the last game and we needed a result to win something, whether to make top 4 or to win, and then we lose at the last, it would be a little bit sad. It would be a little bit different. So all in all, I think we had a decent season. We had a decent run with Klopp. I think he did as well as he could have under the circumstances, bearing in mind the opposition, the money being spent elsewhere. And one little tidbit, Klopp has the same amount of Champions League victory at Anfield that Pep has at City. So there's that.
Yeah, indeed. One thing that I think speaks about his legacy and how close we were to other trophies is when you think about the fact that if you change only 4. I was showing 4 and saying 5. If you're changing 4 results in Jurgen's entire tenure here, you'd have 3 Premier Leagues and 3 Champions Leagues. So that's kind of that kind of shows you just how
Yeah.
close we were to more silverware. But then again, it's if someone had told us this is what we're gonna get before Jurgen came here, I think we would have all taken it. So but yeah, human nature. We'll see what happens with in the future with Slot as well. Dan, I know you're a pretty emotional guy as well. I've witnessed it on chat. So if you'd want to talk about us, talk about us. If you want to talk and say how it was for you yesterday.
Oh yeah, I mean, like it was, like I said, I think at the intro, it was weird. It was a weird scenario, situation with it being the last game with nothing writing on it, considering what we've had in the past. Like the first couple years under Klopp, we had to win our last game to secure top four. We beat Middlesbrough at home, and then I think we had to beat someone else at home during the Champions League run in as well. We had like 70 points or something, and then the first time we were in the title run, who did we play? We played Wolves last game of the season. And that was the one where like they fake cheered. I think we had gone 1-0 or 1-1 up. Mane scored. I just remember that part. And they Man City go on to win, and it's not interesting. We then have the title win, which was COVID, so no one got to enjoy it. We knew we were going to win anyway, so there was no stress on that one. And then the 21-22, I think was the one that really hurt because Villa go 2-0 up. It's tied 1-1 for like so much of the game with Wolves. And then by the time, Salah scores like in the, what was it, like the 84th, 85th minute, like City had just scored like their third goal like 2 or 3 minutes before. So it's weird to have a situation where like nothing's really riding on the last game. Oh yeah, I forgot the one where we won after the COVID season. We still had to win like I think 6 or 7 of our last games to even qualify for top 4 again for the quad chasing season. That's where we have the Trent last minute goal against Villa. We have the Allison header against Bournemouth. So it's weird when you don't actually have that much writing on it as an emotional, as like an emotional exercise. I just honestly just enjoyed seeing everyone like given like their roses, so to speak, all the staff, all the players, Jurgen himself, kind of coming out there. That was probably the happiest I've seen him in such a long time. It's like a trophy celebration. He was just so happy to be out there. And like he said, I'm one of you now, you're the superpower of the club. I think it's hilarious that, that Manchester City have been absolutely rattled by Trent saying this means more, by saying this means four. So, it's so funny. It's so punny, Manchester City. But it's true though. I mean, like you can see that, it does mean a lot more to Liverpool for us because how much we love Jurgen. Like that, in a season where some of us can look at it as failure, which, we didn't win the league. We were in a position we could have won. We had so many games where we dropped points. We just didn't play well in. I'm not going to name the games, but, we can name probably 4 or 5 where like, if 1 or 2 things go our way, we probably win. And even when Klopp has messed up this year, but still at the end of the day, it's like, Jurgen has done so much for this club. And all I remember thinking about that is the fact that, Jurgen came in when I was still in college, and then he leaves. Now I'm married, gone through grad school, worked, just like I'm almost 30 now. So like, Carter's definitely the youngest, but like I've been with Jurgen through my transformative years from teenage to adulthood. And it's weird now going after that to like see what next comes and what's going to come with Slot. So we'll never get that again in our lifetime just because so much has changed, or it'd be very unlikely we get that again. But I just enjoyed it, and that's what I've said this whole year, and why I said like we're going to win the title, we're going to win the quadruple. Because I'm like, we have to be a little bit delusional and sane to enjoy this because it's sport. We're against 115 alleged charges, so you have to find some enjoyment in sport, because sport without risk isn't sport. It's just what is sport without risk? It's boring. It's watching who wins Formula One every year. It's not Ferrari. It's Mercedes. Who wins?
Red
Who
Bull.
wins Formula? Red Bull. It's like winning F1 every year because you have the best car. It's like there is no trepidation. What's the point? It's Lance Armstrong winning 7 Tour de France's. What's the point if you're just going to win every year? So Klopp gave us that belief to be a little bit delusional, and now we have to be maybe a little bit down to earth. But, I will still enjoy every moment, even when I almost had a heart attack. And I think Paul's had like 3 or 4 heart attacks from Liverpool. So hopefully Paul's health will be a lot better than mine going forward.
Yeah, I think I can relate to what you're saying as well. I think Klopp signed for us before I turned 18, if I remember correctly. And now when I look back at it, obviously, since then I got through college, I got a job, I got through all of those years, and Jurgen was there in Liverpool, obviously. Through all of that, I remember, the times where I was in my dorm and we didn't have internet, but then I remember there was a TV on the second floor in the kitchen, and then that's where I went to watch the game against Roma in 2018 in the Champions League. I remember the internet was horrible, but then we found that TV, and basically there was like tens of people in that tiny kitchen watching the game. And I remember I was proud to be a Liverpool fan. It's been a while, since I felt that at that point. But yeah, I remember, so many memories like that. And Jurgen's obviously been through them all. I think, as Carter said, it's basically recent memory from what I can remember. Ever since I started to be mature enough to understand football a bit more, maybe because at 14, 15 years, you're not necessarily that mature and you're not going to understand that much. But ever since I started to be more mature, it's been Jurgen. And yeah, I think that's going to be the weirdest thing about it, seeing someone else manage Liverpool from now on. But it's part of the adventure. Like, I felt the same when Mane left, and then obviously Bobby Firmino, and it's weird to see. And it's going to be the same when Salah leaves, when Virg leaves. But it's part of it's part of life, I guess. Sorry if I seem a bit distracted. I've had like 5 hours of sleep last night and I haven't been great, but that's the reason I can't seem to get my words out. But I'll blame it on the nerves as well, because been an emotional 24 hours. But speaking of other managers and newest head coach, Arne Slot has now been officially confirmed by Jurgen Klopp yesterday and by Liverpool today as well. So it is official. We've kind of known it now for a few weeks, to be honest. As we've discussed, Paul, I think we're more excited at this point than we are, afraid of what's to come. As Jurgen said, the foundations are there. So for me, what's going to be interesting is we're now going to have Arne Slot, who is a bit more on the possession side of the game, not so much on a counter, not so much on a fast build-up, rather on a slow build-up, keeping the ball a bit more and not just, chasing a counter-attack in as soon as we get the ball back. Should we expect a bit of a more slow-paced football with maybe a bit more of an, with a bit better defense maybe going forward, because that's what we missed this season as well?
I wouldn't say slow pace. I would say more, let's call it controlled aggression. So right now, what I've noticed, especially the last few months, is that we tend to get impatient in possession. We pass the ball around, and then we have Virg or whoever at the back make these long diagonal pass, either Virg or Trent, bypassing the midfield if we not able to break down the opposition. I think we're going to see a little bit more control but quick movement. And I'm kind of excited because coaching really can do a lot in soccer. If you look at Crystal Palace as an example, because I was really looking at some of their highlights yesterday, because I was kind of fascinated. Their number 9, what's his name? Philippe Mateta, or whatever his name. He scored 3 goals in the season prior to the new coach coming in. Since then, he has scored 13 goals in 13 games with the new setup, with the new coach. More goals in that period than any other number 9 in the Premier League. So what that tells you is that a guy who was basically a dud just all of a sudden just become number 1 because of coaching. So I think that I am saying this to say that I think there's a lot of hope with Darwin Núñez. And there's a lot of talk, the last couple of days about Darwin Núñez, his body language, and he wants to leave, all of that kind of stuff. I am kind of a little bit hopeful that he hangs around and we get to see a year with Slot to see if we can turn him into the monster that we think he is. Because one of the strong points about Slot is how he's able to turn average players into good players, right? Feyenoord has never been blessed with world-class players. If there's any world-class talent, that was done by Slot. So I am a little bit more optimistic. And there is a very interesting piece this morning on the Athletic. I'm not sure if you guys saw it, about how Liverpool came to the conclusion that Slot was the right guy. And even though they admit that Xabi Alonso was on their list, it seems as if they were a little bit relieved that he took his name out of the ring from very early on, because Liverpool seems to be very apprehensive in a coach that sticks to the back three. So I think we did very well with Slot. I am very optimistic. I think we definitely need a couple of players, but not much, because the squad as it is right now is extremely talented. So I call me crazy, call me a dreamer, but I think we're going to be right up there next year. And if we win the Premier League, I would not be shocked.
Well, let's hope you're gonna be given that opportunity not to be shocked. Then, it is. I would be very surprised if Darwin Nunez leaves. I think that we've seen a bit of we've seen him get better, improve in this season as well. I think, especially when you think about his first season, that was maybe he he didn't have numbers that were necessarily close to what we were expecting. But then this season, I think he's improved a lot and still had a lot of bad luck as well. I think he's hit the post 9 times only in the Prem, which is me personally, I wouldn't put that down to finishing. It's just bad luck at this point. But we're gonna have to wait and see. I think that I am pretty excited to see Darwin Nunez in Slot's system as well, because I think maybe maybe that's just what he needs at this point. We'll see. Carter, then Arne Slot. It is. We've known this now for a few weeks. Are you as excited as Paul is?
I'm very excited. I think for me, I think the first thing that's going to get me really excited is when there's a game when we actually work the ball to the byline and just cut it back really nicely, just a few times, and I'll be like, that's nice. Because I just think sometimes our chances, they're not easy chances, but it's a lot harder to score when you've just sprinted 40 yards and you've had to get away from your marker. And I think making that shift will be a bit easier. And I also think it would be nice to be less up and down, although as like a neutral, people might not like that. I think for us to sort of pen teams in a bit more, take a second, get everyone up, just move the ball around and wait for sometimes you've got to take a gamble. And I think we have players that will take gambles, but we don't have to take the 1 in 10 that's going to work. We're going to work it till we get Elliot's on the edge and he goes 7 times out of 10, he's going to hit his man and he takes it. And I think for guys like Elliot, for Szoboszlai, I'm really excited. I hope he can sort of fit them in and give, especially Szoboszlai. I just think we need to get him out of that right centre mid sort of dog role. Like he needs a bit more freedom. Like when you see all the stuff of him at Hungary, like in the national team, dribbling past people sort of on the wing, he's one where I think this change, I think is coming at the right time, because I think Klopp sort of brings the midfielders back a bit. Like no matter who he's had, he sort of had them drop a bit deeper and change the role. But I think for him, I think this new manager with this 10, with these sort of wing roles, I think for him and Elliot, the sky could be the limit when you look at sort of Phil Foden scoring all these goals, Cole Palmer scoring all these goals. These guys, Elliot and Szoboszlai, could easily get that amount. So I'm really looking forward to next season.
Yeah, indeed. And the interesting thing is now that we know Slot likes to play a 4-2-3-1 a lot of the time. So we've discussed that, now having someone in that 10 role, I think that's going to be great for Szoboszlai. That's pretty close to what he's playing in Hungary as well. So it's going to be interesting to see. I've talked about it ever since last summer when we signed Szoboszlai. I was saying, him as the 10 or on the right wing as well, I think he'd be an amazing player for us. I was hoping to maybe see him there when Mo would go to the Africa Cup of Nations, but it wasn't to be. Dan, I'm going to ask you the same question then. What's your opinion on Slot? What's your opinion on, and how excited are you for the rest of the next season rather?
I really like Arne Slot, I mean, I think we have to, if you, just to contextualize everything, Feyenoord are not a small club in the Netherlands. They're one of the big three. It's them, Ajax, and AZ, I think, are the three big ones,
PSV.
unless PSV Eindhoven. That's right. They're the other one. AZ's more lower tier. But Feyenoord have a stadium of like 50,000 people. They are not a small club by any stretch of imagination. Um, and Slot is someone who, if you strip the names of Klopp and Slot and you looked at and you strip their trophy cabinets like cumulatively, and you just looked at like traits, what they do in the data, what they focus on, their personalities, they're pretty much like for like. Obviously, they're not, because Klopp is Klopp and Slot is Slot. Though it is kind of funny how their names kind of somewhat roll off the tongue together. My one worry with Slot has never been his ability to coach. It's been the fact that, will the fan base keep the face, so to speak, or will everyone, will it become a Rodgers situation 2.0? I think Slot's accomplished way more than Rodgers did. He's way less of a gamble. He's older. He's already won a league with Feyenoord. He's already broken 80 points in the Dutch league, which it is the Dutch league, but he knows what it's like to win a lot in the season and also do European football. Rodgers did not have that experience. So Slot kind of comes in as like probably the manager with the most pedigree since Klopp and Rafa and maybe Houllier. I don't remember if Houllier won a league before he became Liverpool manager. Maybe he didn't. But those are the two most that have come outside of the Liverpool coaching structure that I can remember that have the most pedigree. My trepidation is that the one thing with Alonso is that this is what I've always said, and there was always a chance Alonso wouldn't leave. And from the Athletic article that Carter mentions, and Mihai, you may have mentioned it too, or Paul, is that Liverpool fans would have stuck with Alonso if we ended up with 75 points for 4 years and didn't challenge and won a couple of cups. Everyone would be like, oh, we're gonna back Xabi Alonso until the day Xabi Alonso leaves, because of Xabi Alonso. You have the romanticism. He's a beautiful man. He's tall. He has hair. He's Spanish. People will wait for years for a beautiful, tall Spanish man, but for a bold Dutchman, they may have less patience with someone with less hair. I mean this in the sarcastic way, but there is that sense of if things start to go bad for Slot, will the fan base, be it's football, it's sport, things, you're always going through rough times, or will people start being like, oh, FSG cheaped out. They should have gotten Amorim. They should have gotten, they should have done everything they can to get Xabi Alonso. They should have hired Zinedine Zidane, the other Baldy, who won stuff as well. It's like, oh, on a slot, he's just he's just an Eric Ten Hag, but with a better smile. Yeah, exactly. It's pretty privilege. Privilege is a real thing. Like Klopp being a handsome, tall, 6'4" German does help a lot. But all joking aside, all cards on the table, I think Slot can do a lot with this team. And I've always said, even in the chat, even though we've had very passionate arguments about this, but I will stand by this until I'm proven wrong, is that you don't need a whole lot to win with this Liverpool team. Just someone coming in who's a good coach with a different approach. Again, maybe not still, like Paul said, that controlled aggression, a more focus on crisp passing, one-touch passing, less of a focus on winning the ball in the Jurgen pressing style, but more on when you win the ball, playing quick passing. How do you play bang, bang, those big triangles, rather than this kind of be brave in possession and be willing to lose the ball? Because someone mentioned not conceding the first goal. A lot of the reasons why we concede the first goal is because Klopp's whole philosophy is be brave and lose the ball because we'll win it back. But when you keep losing the ball in the first 10 minutes of a game, you're giving the opposition, a lot of encouragement, and then that's how you concede first. They've gotten enough encouragement that you concede. So I think Slot will just tweak a couple things. But those couple of tweaks will probably pay off in massive dividends throughout the season. I know James had mentioned somewhere who's the first player that Slot signs, and to be completely honest, I actually have no idea because you could go anywhere with this squad right now. I think the implication we've been reading from the news and from what we might see is that there are probably going to be 2 or 3 players they focus on, one of which is probably a center back, one of which is probably a left back, and the other would probably either be a long-term defensive mid that they're looking to double pivot, or it's someone who can do multifunctional stuff, like they can do like a center mid or right back role, or center mid or center back role that they've looked at before in the past. Because honestly, like I said, I have no idea right now, because it really depends on who else leaves. But right now we have a very good squad, and if no one leaves besides the ones who are out of contract, you make one or two or three additions. You know, you're essentially still a Liverpool team that can go deep in League Cups, FA Cups, challenge for a league title, and compete in European football, which is all you can really ask for every single year.
Yeah, I think one thing that I'd also like us to do is maybe reduce the intensity a little bit. That's also going to mean maybe less injuries, and obviously I'd like us, as Carter said, I think I'd like us to get a hold of the ball a bit more, and control the game a bit more, because then that's obviously maybe going to help us not to concede pretty much every not to be the first ones who concede in every single game, as Mew said. Now, regarding this question, I don't know if we're going to press less. I think it's pretty much going to be the same. Yeah. The thing for me is that it's probably, once we regain possession, we're not going to be as direct as we were under Jurgen. That's probably the thing that's going to change. Dan, do you want to add anything to that?
No, I was just going to say, so like, Slot is when we say direct, I think it's more the fact that it's more of a controlled directness, if that makes sense. So instead of it being when the ball, McAllister tries to play the through ball, the ball gets lost and it comes back into the game of volleyball. I think what you'll see is that what it'll be is that, like, you win the ball, you make a pass, and then you go direct. So it's like it's adding that extra pass or step to essentially, like, you win the ball, everyone's out of position, you make the quick pass, you now have a better position to be more selective, and then we go up as well. I don't think we'll press less. I think I like you said, more selective, or I think someone had said more selective with the press, and we'll press probably a lot more in a high and mid block, rather than, it's always a high press, and once you beat the high press, we're fucked, so to speak. To put kindly of a phrase on it, but I think there'll be more focus on a mid to high press, in between, less so trying to press the goalkeeper, and more of trying to press the middle third between the defensive mid and the center back. Because what you want to do is you want to force the ball wide, because if you can block that center of the pitch, you're essentially stopping 95% of the teams that try to score. Even Manchester City will try to play through the middle in order to score a goal. So I think that's what we'll see more of, is more selective pressing, one or two tweaks in our direct passing, but it will still be direct, if that makes sense.
Okay, thanks then for the tactical insight. Before we're gonna move on to the next topic, one thing that I wanted to add is to what Dan said. So basically, regarding Slot managing a big club. So basically, in the Netherlands, it's been Feyenoord and Ajax in the 70s and 80s. That was pretty much the biggest rivalry there was. They were the two teams that were playing in Der Klassiker, which is their name for the biggest derby in the Netherlands. PSV came on the scene a bit later, or came on the scene. They've kind of regained their popularity somewhere in the 90s, and funnily enough, PSV were very, very close to knock out Milan in 2005 in the semifinals in the Champions League. I think Milan qualified based on like the away goal, because I think they lost 3-1 in Eindhoven and they won 2-0 in Milan, which was very close. And we might have not seen the best comeback in the competition's history. Had it been, another goal in any of those for PSV. But now let's get back into our topics at hand. Now, what I wanted to discuss next is the contract situation for Mo Salah, Trent, Alexander-Arnold, and Virgil van Dijk. There have been a lot of talks, especially around Mo Salah and Trent. We know that Salah has attracted Saudi interest last summer, and it's been speculated that he may be on the list once again for some Saudi clubs. Trent has obviously been a target for Real Madrid, and he's probably still is. He still is a target for Real. I mean, Me personally, I would be very surprised to see any of those three players leave. But we're obviously going to have to wait and see. We know that Edwards is not necessarily a fan of, let's say, older players, but maybe things are a bit different than what they were a few years back, because we can now see that Van Dijk and Mo Salah still at 31, 32 are very, close to their best levels that we've seen from them still. So I don't think there's any reason to get rid. Carter, would you agree with me? Would you let any one of those go?
I actually wanted to pick up on what you said about Edwards not liking older players. I think Edwards doesn't like bad players. And I think that's the difference. Edwards doesn't, and obviously it is now Richard Hughes, but I think all of those guys, it is brutal, but you do have to look at, is this guy a plus or a negative for the team? And I think when we're building this team, as sort of the guys have said, we want to kind of we want to be a 90-point team. And I think if you look at all those guys, I think what you could have us four could play, and we could have Alisson, Van Dijk, and we'd probably get 30, 40 points because they're that good. And I think you slowly need to build the team up, and you go, this guy, Salah gets you 20 points, Trent gets you 20 points. And that's how you slowly have to, I think you can almost look at building the team up. And I think all of those guys are still such big pluses, that you have to keep them. When Ronaldo, maybe he keeps you at the level, Henderson was a bit of a minus maybe at one point. Fabinho ended up sort of being more of a hindrance than a positive on the team. But I think all of those four guys will win you games. Van Dijk defensively, he'll probably win you a few games with his goals. Salah will win you a number of games. Trent will win you more games than any fullback has in the history of football. And Alisson is the best goalkeeper in the world. So I think Edwards and Hughes, they'll definitely want to keep them. And I also think with Saudi, I think people have said maybe the money's less, but we could sell Salah in 3 years to Saudi Arabia and still get £50 million. The money's still going to be there. It's not the Chinese. I can't remember, was it Chinese something league? I can't remember the league, what the name of the league was. But I think the money's still going to be there for those guys when they're 34, when they're 35. So for me, there's no rush. I'd try and keep all of them.
Fair enough. And yeah, I do agree with pretty much everything you said. It is, and one thing that I'm excited about, by the way, that I forgot to mention, is that indeed we've pretty much signed a lot of young players in midfield. So that's going to also be interesting to see how they are going to improve in the next seasons under Arne Slot. Paul, is it the same for you then? Would you let any of those guys leave this summer?
I don't think any of them is in real danger of leaving, to be honest. There's a lot of speculation over the last year and a half about Salah and Saudi. And of course, Saudi would love to have Mo Salah there. But as far as I can tell, Salah has never expressed any interest to go to Saudi. I guess because he is Muslim, we just all assume that he wants to go play there. But he has never expressed that interest. And even this last month or two, the Saudis have reportedly said that they would only make a play for Salah if he indicates that he wants to join. So I am not too concerned about Salah, at least not for this year. And also bear in mind, that it's all well and good to say, okay, we can sell Salah to Saudi for 100 million or whatever it is. But it takes two to tango. If the player doesn't want to go, it's not going to happen, right? Salah is settled in England for quite a few years. His family is there. I would suspect that they're enjoying life in the UK. As it relates to Virg and Trent, again, I don't see either of them going. Trent, I think, has been told that he will be the future captain after Virg. Trent admires Steven Gerrard, and I would not be surprised if he's one of those players again that spent his entire career at one club. What I suspect, though, is that Trent is anxious to get a move to midfield. He has said that many times, especially when he plays for England, he is comfortable in midfield. And when he's asked the question, he's always said, he would like to experience it. So I would not be surprised if Trent have a word with Slot and say, hey, can I get some more minutes in the middle of the park? And especially with Conor Bradley over there, and then we have Joe Gomez as a backup. I expect Trent to get some time in midfield. So to answer your question, I don't think any of them, the three players, is leaving. And if you look at Chelsea, they went down that path of having everybody under 23 or younger, and it backfired on them. So there is a point to be made that your best option is to have a nice mix of experienced players whilst you try to bring in and blood the younger players. So I think there'll be a couple of tweaks, of course. Of course, we're going to replace those two players that are out of contract. But the one guy that I think may leave, which is probably under the radar, is Ibrahima Konate. Um, I think the club is a little bit frustrated with Konate. One, his form has not been the greatest when he has played recently, and we all know that he has a checkered past as it relates to injuries. And the club has said multiple times that centre back is an area that we need to address. So the fact that Kwanzaa is playing the bulk of the minutes while Konate is on the bench, and we're looking to bring in, I'm going to say, at least two centre backs, I would not be surprised if we hear that Konate is moved on. But other than that, I don't think we're going to see much people or much players from the first team leaving. But I expect to see two or three additions. And anybody we bring in is not so much a young prospect. I think we're going to look for players that are ready to contribute right now, especially at that centre back position. If we bring in a talent, it might be a right winger, but for centre back and maybe a six, we're looking at players that are ready to play right now. And I think we have a nice mix. We have a lot of talent, and I think you might complement it here or there, but I don't expect to see any wholesale changes.
All right, then you've kind of answered a bit of my next on my next topic as well. We're going to get into that. Anyways, yeah, Muse. I've seen this on Twitter yesterday as well and today as well. I wouldn't read too much into it. Hopefully, even though there's this part of me, hear me out, that almost thinks I would wish for Trent to play for a club like Madrid, mainly because at that point, there's not going to be any more conversations about him being overrated, and Southgate will not be able to ignore him anymore, because at that point, you're going to have someone who's going to be... I mean, if Trent would go to Madrid and win, pretty much everything once again, he'd be en route. He'd be at least in the conversation for one of the best right backs of all time in the history of football, and he's already redefined the position anyways, so he's not that far off. But that's mainly me thinking about that, but obviously would not want Trent to leave. So yeah, then I'm going to ask you the same thing then. The answer is going to be fairly short, I assume. Would you sell any one of those three players in the summer?
No, unless getting a ridiculous offer. So I feel like we've gotten to a point in the cynical nature of Italy sports where a player crying is a sign that they're leaving. Not without evidence. Paul's cooking right now. He's really cooking something in the kitchen.
Let him cook. Let him cook.
I'm gonna let him cook. I'm gonna let him cook for a minute because I know Paul's. I love you, Paul. Just so you know, I know he's listening still. I would honestly only sell. I would only sell someone if one, you get a ridiculous offer, and two, if they were pushing to go. I don't think Trent wants to leave. It is his boyhood club, and he is vice captain for a reason. I don't think they would make him vice captain just to sell him a year on, or at least I would hope not. I don't think we've reached that levels of cynicism in sports. I just think he was crying yesterday because it's the only coach he's ever had. The only time I remember ever seeing Trent in a Liverpool first team setup was against Swindon Town with Brendan Rodgers, and I think he was playing right back that game too. So Klopp came in and essentially changed Trent Alexander-Arnold's life, and I think that cannot be understated. That Trent essentially went from being a teenager to a young man Klopp as coach. That's a massive emotional investment that both Trent and Jurgen have made into each other. So no, my question is no, I would not sell any of them, because one, I don't think I think that Salah is probably the one that if you lose on a free, everyone's going to be like, oh, we could have sold him and made XXX. But I don't think you need to sell any of them to rebuild or to add players into the team. You're only selling them to make way for another starter. So like if you're selling Virgil, it's because you're buying someone to start for Virgil. And in that case, you probably need to buy 2 center backs like Paul mentioned. I don't think you just need to buy one and then promote someone like Sepp Vandenberg. Or if Sepp Vandenberg's not good enough, you sell Sepp Vandenberg and you promote another center back that you think is ready to go. Or you buy a veteran center back that's on the market that might be a little bit cheap. Like Rafael Varane's on a free this summer. Now, granted, he's going to cost out enormous wages, and I don't think you should buy him. He is available, though. Where I think Liverpool are going to make the most gains in the market is not by selling their top players, but by that second tier. So your Kelleher's, your Simicas's, your Tyler Morton's, your Carvalho's, maybe a Bradley or Ramsey. I don't think they'll sell either of them. I think they may keep both of them and then have those be your 2 right backs going forward. Your Becks, your Chambers, your Scanlons. That's where you actually make the biggest return on investment from in terms of percentage, because you're getting a lot of money for almost like no cost. Like it's the pure profit thing with PSR. You're making all this money without any profit. So I don't think any of them get sold. I think Slot wants to work with all of them. And I think they buy 2 or 3 players, and we mostly just sell a lot of team players. Would be my prediction if I could make a prediction right now. Also, no, we're not loaning or selling Bajcetic, Jamie. Starting number 6, day 1, double pivot, Bajcetic and Trent Alexander-Arnold. We're going to score 6 goals. We're going to concede 2. I don't care.
All right, then. Dan's excited. So,
Dan, what's your thought on Konate?
Okay, so here's the thing, Paul. They're not going to sell Konate unless he wants to leave. I don't think they sell Konate because the plan has always been that Konate will be a long-term center back. That's why they waited for him. They didn't buy a center back during COVID, and if they did, we probably win the league. But bygones be bygones. I like Konate a lot. I think he has plateaued a lot this year, though I can't tell if that's down to his mentality because Klopp was leaving, if it's form, if it's injury or anything else. But he definitely hasn't been as good as he has been in the past, where I think he has been our best center back. And Kwanzaa has improved a lot. And I think that's more of a testament to Kwanzaa's improvement than Kwanzaa's decline, if that makes any sense. I think Konate and Gomez have a similar boat, which is very weird. Yeah, so Jay wants PSG and PSG not interested. I don't know if Konate wants PSG though, because PSG again it's very weird right now at PSG, where they're going through this very stressful situation. Where I feel like Konate and Gomez are 2 very quality defenders and good center backs. Even though people say that Gomez is the best left back, he's a good center back, and we should not forget that fact. Is that with a new coach, with some new direction, I think they'll be improved. But I think right now, if you're talking about selling a player and buying a new one, Paul, you could sell Konate. But if you're selling Konate, you're going to have to buy 2. That's just what I'm going to say. Like right now, you only need to buy 1 and promote Vandenberg if Vandenberg's good enough. But I'm just going to assume he is and say that Vandenberg can come in and play minutes with Kwanzaa, with Konate, Gomez, and Van Dijk. If you're selling Konate, you need to buy 2. And I don't think you really want to buy 2. I think right now they're in a situation where you can buy a center back, potentially buy a forward, like a Bakayoko, a right winger, or a left winger, or someone who can play across the front line, a multifaceted winger, or Carter's famous player of all time, Anthony Gordon, who Carter loves. And I have to listen to so much Sid the Sloth propaganda. My brain has become slime. It's oozing out of my ears. I'm listening to this all the time. But having to sell a center back, you're just doing yourself more work. And I don't think they'll do that. But I do think, Paul, that if he doesn't improve next year, I think they will look to sell him the year after that. No, not Somerville. I'm not buying mid-tier wingers from Leeds United. Everton thing. Everton bought James Harrison. I don't want a mid-tier winger from Leeds United. That's like the worst idea in the world.
What about Tosin, free agent from Fulham? He could be on next Matip.
I mean, you could do that, but again, Paul, I want you to think about this fan base and how much people talk about the ownership group and Hughes and everything else. If you're saying that you're selling Konate for 50 million, you're buying, let's say, Pacheco for 40, and then you sign Tosin on a free, people are going to be like, it's like FSG cheaping out again. You know, we sold one of the best center backs and brought another one, and they didn't adequately replace them. Like, I think Tosin's a decent center back, but I think he's just going to go to Manchester United. I think what JMU said, or Tottenham, or a club that really needs a center back. Like, Tottenham needs center backs. They only have 2, and one of them has bad hamstrings, and the other one's shit. Romeo is not a good center back. Anybody here that tries to argue Christian Romeo is a good center back is lying. Sorry, Mihai. I'll catch you up there.
No, funnily enough, it's been pretty much what I wanted to discuss next, but yeah, it seems like you've already gotten into that. I wanted to discuss on I wanted to talk about the summer transfer window, mainly because, as I said at the beginning, we know that Slot will likely want to try a 4-2-3-1, and then you'd probably need another 6 as well. And maybe, as people said in the chat, someone on the wing. It's going to be interesting to see, though, if you're going to get a left or a right winger or any sort of winger, you're going to have to probably sell someone. Is it going to be Diaz, as we've seen a lot of online? Is that a bit too much? Because then Diaz has obviously been, in my opinion, at least one of our best players this season, even though he's been through a lot in his personal life as well. So Carter, I'm gonna ask you this question then. Who would you get in the summer, and who do you think should be priority on which position? Because we've seen talk of center backs, left backs, CDMs, left wingers. Where would you go? Who would you get?
For me, I think I would say number 6, but I don't think there's any outstanding player. So I think that's very difficult. And I understand with the defense, because I actually, unlike, might shock people, I still think Konate is a lot better than Quansah. I think Quansah ranks highly in a lot of statistics, but I still think when I see him, I still think there's a lot more he needs to improve. And there are certain things that Konate has that Quansah will never have, in terms of like size and speed. I know Quansah's big, but it's a different build. Like Konate is like a brick wall. And then I'm trying to think, Quansah's like a smaller brick wall. Like, so in that way, I do like Quansah, but I think for me, the most important thing, and I get what you mean, and I think Diaz, and I'm going to kind of compare this to Henderson, I think they do a lot, and because they do a lot, they kind of look busy. And sometimes looking busy isn't always good. I now think, after watching the last game, I think I'd have Szoboszlai maybe on either wing as like cover or playing, and I think I would definitely sign like a high volume dribbler winger who can win a lot of duels, who can sort of play each side, who's a bit more secure in possession, who probably as well is sort of performs to his XG. Like, I think Diaz has underperformed a bit, and I just think winger, I think for the system Slot plays, I think we could do with one more guy who could play either side. And so for me, I'm gonna say this because I've seen him play, and I think he's unbelievable, and I think we have enough players to cover for his injuries. I would sign Pedro Neto.
Oh, okay. But no, that's the same. No.
Or Kudus.
No.
Or Kudus. I would sign no. I think we can. I personally would still I'd still rather start Szoboszlai, but I think Neto is worth a gamble at 40 to 50 million pounds, because there's no point signing Elise because he has to play right wing. I would sign Kudus, but he's going to probably cost twice as much as Neto. And Bakayoko is great, plays Salah's position, and is in the Eredivisie. So I think we're kind of scraping down the list a bit, because Kvaratskhelia is going to be like 120 mil. Leao's going to be 150. Rodrigo's not leaving. So it's like, what are we going to sign? Kubo, who's basically Harvey Elliott, who's a little bit quicker. Like, we're just I don't think there's loads of people on the list. Like, I think it's a difficult one. I think sometimes you've got to take the risk.
So, Carter, I completely take your point, but I have a great rebuttal to this. Don't sign anyone then. I mean, okay, so let me rephrase this. Like, Okay, so I agree. Szoboszlai can play as a winger, and you can definitely change. Because what you just described is what Diaz was supposed to be, a dribbling winger who wins his battles and is very direct. I think the problem with Diaz's performances has not been the – Yes, I also hate Danny Olmo. I don't hate these players. I just don't think they're a proper fit. If we're talking about 4-2-3-1, like I can understand buying a Danny Olmo, but you're spending a lot of money for a player that's not going to give you a big return is my big worry. So, Coda, I completely take your point. Kudos costs too much money, but I think he's a good player. I think you could sign Kudos if you're selling Salah because it's the only one that makes sense. Again, I know everyone's saying he's the best left, right, center, 8-10. I don't think you need to spend that much money on a forward. All you can do is say Szoboszlai is now, instead of playing as an 8, a 10 playing an 8, you're saying he's a left, right, mid, or a center attacking mid. He's essentially covering a wing because he has the legs for that. You can also say the same thing with like a Gravenberch or a Ben Doak or a Harvey Elliott or a Fabio Carvalho, who's not playing as wide. They're playing more narrow. The width is more from a fullback or from a forward pulling wide, like a Dorman. Dorman Nunes starting center pulling wide right, which is what he did a lot at Benfica. I know that is a suggestion. I understand why I understand the Pedro Neto shout. It's just that he's been at a crisp. And the one thing you don't want at Liverpool is another injury-prone player on top of the other ones we're already worried about as well. And they're not really injury-prone. I would say in that situation, you just don't buy anyone and you just go to the players you have.
My rebuttal I just say to that is, look, I'm not saying he's as good as him, but he is electric. Look at what Gareth Bale did at Real Madrid. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying they're the same, but I'm saying when you have someone who's freakishly quick, who wins games for Wolves on his own. He offers cutbacks. He dribbles at a good success rate. He does a lot of dribbles. I think, and because we have such a big squad, we can take the gamble and we can move because there's points where Edwards. I think I don't know if he has signed injury prone players, but I think sometimes you do have to make a decision, and we've got enough players to cover the squad. And
That's madness.
I still think Gakpo can't play on the wing. Gakpo is not a winger. I will argue with anyone to death on here. Gakpo is not a Premier League winger. He can't. He gets dribbles, but he can't go past his man. I've never seen him stand up.
It's about availability, Carter.
Yeah,
it's about availability, not ability.
Available every game. We've got enough available players. We can take a risk on one unavailable guy.
Yeah. I would say there's one player we're forgetting. It's Ben Doak. And it's because he didn't play a lot this year, but I feel like we really missed out on seeing a good season of Ben Doak, someone who is a very direct winger. I agree with you. Gakpo is not a winger in the sense of how good about Premier League wingers. Your Jeremy Doku's, your Mohamed Salah, even Sadio Mane, because Sadio Mane could be a left winger and a left forward. I think that Gakpo is either a left forward or a second striker. It's the Dele Alli problem. If you shove him out on the wing, he's not going to do what Gakpo is really good at. It's holding the ball up, moving the ball, and getting inside. So I think you can make a situation work where Gakpo is starting on a left inside half part that's not quite the left wing and come inside. But I agree with you. He's not a winger in that sense. But this is what comes down to the fact that you have Luis Diaz, you have Mohamed Salah. I don't think you're buying a winger unless you're selling a winger, is my point. Unless you're selling a Bakayoko, unless you're trying to buy a Bakayoko and you're going to move Salah to a striker position or a 10 position, which I think you could do. I think you could buy Bakayoko for, 30 million euros, move Salah to a 10, and make your point man either Nunez or Gakpo and have them essentially play a situation where Salah plays as a 10 and then runs forward, but he's the actual striker. Like Harry Kane used to play at Tottenham. Like, Kane was a 9, but he played like a 10. And that's the one thing people forget about Harry Kane is that when he was younger and he could run, he would drop deep and Son would actually play further forward or Dele Alli would go further forward and he would actually play a role in the build-up. And actually, that's what Kane was the most dangerous. Sorry, I got sidetracked there talking about Tottenham too much.
Those were a lot of hot takes in those last 5 minutes. So I'm trying to think. No, I'm going to go shortly. I would get Somerville. I would not get Pedro Neto. I think Cody Gakpo is a very good Premier League winger. Those are my 2 cents on pretty much every topic that was discussed. So
you also said Arsenal would win the league, Mihai. You also said they would win the league.
Yes,
so,
but I only said that because I didn't want to put City for the 4th one in a row, and it was closer than you wanted to admit.
It was. I was actually. I could not live with Arsenal in the league because I could not live with the fact that Mihai was the only one to predict that. I would
No,
have. It would have.
honestly, yeah, I didn't want to be right
I
just because of Arsenal fans.
I would have no. I didn't want you to. I couldn't have Mihai be right. I would have jumped off a building for that because that would have been like the amount of egg on my face from that would have just been too much to live with.
Well, one quick question to end the stream, lads. We've seen Jamius put this question in the chat. Leeds versus Southampton then for promotion at the weekend. Who are you taking? Carter?
Southampton every single day, so we can try and get Archie Gray for a reasonable fee before he goes for £150 million to a top 6 team. That's definitely not us because we're not going to buy him for that much.
Good reasoning there. Paul?
I think Leeds will win because I think they're the better squad, they're the better team. But I don't care either way. I don't want Somerville. I think he's okay player, but I don't think he's really like a game changer. Plus another small left winger is not an area of need for me. So Archie Gray, yes, but again, I don't care either way. If we get him, it's a nice talent, but I don't think it's going to be impacting our team anytime soon. And we have a ton of talent in the middle of the park, young talent. But I think Leeds will win, but I don't care, to be honest.
Dan?
Southampton, but just because I want to see Leeds suffer because I just hate Leeds United. They're a terrible club.
Wow.
And they should suffer.
Indeed, Muse, you said it. Dan hates everyone tonight. It's getting worse and worse. It seems.
Club's gone. We don't have to be nice to each other.
Fair enough. It's a new era we're gonna get into. Me personally, I am not sure about Leeds mainly because they do have this style of they seem like the type of a team that usually do now and think later. Act now and think later. Is that what it's called? Yeah, I'm trying to. Anyways, I think Southampton will get it, clinch it, but just. So that's us, and I think it was Paul said Leeds. Oh, it would have been all around, but no. We'll see who was right then at the end of the
It's going to be a penalty shootout though. That would be nice.
Well, yeah. It will, hopefully, at least we're gonna have something to
some excitement.
Yeah, indeed. Thank you, everyone who tuned in. Thanks a lot to Carter, to Paul, to Dan for being here tonight. Thanks for everyone who left a comment in the chat. And indeed, up until next week, Arne Slot. Na na la la.
Arne Slot.
So it will be at the slot end, not the cup end. We're going to score at the goals at the slot end.
Yeah. We got a slot for slot.
We're going to see you next week then. I'm going to close the stream until this doesn't get any more out of hand. Up the Reds.